too sad to walk. Just give me a few hours.
Hello and welcome to episode 71 of Popcorn and Prosecco, a show that's all about talking about movies. I'm Perri Nemiroff, and here are my co-hosts, Kristy Puchko and Angie Han.
Hello from Maine.
Hello from
I'm just gonna brag at the top.
old New York.
Hey, New York is cool. I'm happy to be a Flatlander. That's what it was?
Flatlanda.
Flatlanda.
That's what I've learned in Maine, is they call the rest of us Flatlanders because we don't live near that. Look at that.
Oh! I feel bad that I just had such an audible response because I probably took the camera away from it. Alright, so this week we are talking about the big movie of the weekend, obviously, Inside Out, and then for our hot topic we're going to put that at the end of the show, and we're going to use it to rank our favorite Pixar movies. So, a lot of interesting things will happen there. First off, Inside Out, Angie, you are starting us off there.
Alright. After young Riley is uprooted from her Midwest life and moved to San Francisco, her emotions, joy, fear, anger, disgust, and sadness, conflict on how best to navigate a new city, house, and school. I don't know why I just had so much trouble reading that.
It sounded like you were like, her moist feelings, and I was like,
Goodness.
I thought you were trying to do the Maine accent thing we were talking about.
No,
so,
clearly all the little emotions
I
in my head are going crazy at the controls, and that's why I'm fucking this up. So
nice save.
All right, so I really love this movie. For one thing, it's just, even for Pixar, this premise is bold and unusual, and it's the rare movie that you hear it and you're just like, that sounds interesting, but I have no idea what you're gonna do with this or where it's going. And for that reason, I mean, just that reason alone made it really exciting to me. But on top of that, one of the things I was most impressed by is I don't think it's a spoiler, but one of the themes of this movie is kind of finding out what purpose sadness serves. And it's a really interesting and rich and deep message to get across, especially because this is a movie that's aimed, at adults, but also at little children. So I thought that it did some really interesting things with that. And then on top of that, the voice cast is fantastic. Amy Poehler is Joy, Phyllis Smith from The Office is Sadness, which is just perfect. I don't know if that actress is sad in real life, but as soon as I heard that she was cast, I was like, oh my god, that's amazing.
They talked a lot about Amy Poehler at that Pixar visit that I went to. I got to go to the actual Pixar campus in San Francisco, and they showed us the first 60 minutes of the movie. This is 2 months ago. And
I forgot that was in San Francisco.
Yeah, they gave us a whole tour of the facility and broke down how they made the movie. And a lot of the thing with Joy was they were so afraid that if you created a character that could only express joy and was happy all the time, oh my god, there's birds chirping. Sorry, I got so distracted. If you could only express joy, that character would become annoying. And they're like, when we got Amy Poehler, just the intonation of her voice and the way she said certain lines made it there was only one way that could work, and she kind of nailed it.
I have a question about that, because Amy Poehler's done other cartoon shows before, but it's a show called The Mighty Bee, which people may not know. Did they mention that at all when they were talking about how this movie was developed?
I have never even heard of that.
I'm just going to throw this out there. If you can find The Mighty Bee, it's sensational. It's Amy Poehler playing it's basically like Baby Leslie Knope, where she's a Girl Scout who believes if she gets all her badges, she'll become a superhero. And she's just so go, 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 and so positive that watching Joy, it felt like a big flashback. And also, I'm pretty sure for fans of Mighty Bee, all four of you, the best friend in this movie, Riley's best friend that she has to leave behind, I'm pretty sure is based on the main character of Mighty Bee, because they look super similar.
Well,
all right, but
okay, going back to the beginning of Inside Out, when I first saw the very first, I can't remember if it was a teaser or a synopsis, whatever, but I read it and I'm like, that's interesting, but how the hell are you ever going to turn that into a full feature? I just didn't understand how they were going to balance the real world and the mind world and make me believe that these emotions controlled that character, but they were all kind of the same. And the editing in this, between going from the real world to the mind world, is absolutely outstanding. The way that you see the emotions control whatever they're doing on that control panel, and then all of a sudden they'll cut to Riley at the perfect time and she'll actually react. But it's also in a way, I love this about the movie a lot too. They always do it in a way where it doesn't feel like the emotions are doing everything on their own.
It's an interaction.
Riley takes part in it too.
Yeah. They're responding to what she's perceiving, and and I'm not going to get too into it, but part of why sadness becomes such a focal point in the movie is because of Riley, but they don't like understand that right away. And like, I like that the movie sets up with Joy is like, welcome to my world, and this is so-and-so, and this is so-and-so, and she defends everyone but sadness, where she's like, anger's good because of this, and like, disgust is good because of this, because I think of those all as kind of negative emotions. But then she's like, this is sadness. No. And like, I also enjoyed that because I feel like, aside from the emotional aspect, there's also the fact that in life, there's always that person where you're like, I just don't get this person. I don't understand what their deal is. And to give us an empathetic look at that person and be like, look, that person has a value too, I thought was really smart.
That was like one of my first questions when I went to that event. I'm like, aren't you guys worried that everyone's just going to want to like Joy? Because what kid wants to go into this movie and be like, sadness is my favorite emotion? But I mean, I walked out of this and sadness was my favorite emotion. And I'm proud of it.
No, sadness is kind of lovely. Go ahead.
One of the other things that this movie does really well is, so, you know, this all this turmoil is precipitated by her moving, and also just the fact that she's a 12-year-old girl, which is an age where, you know, you kind of start to become, you're in transition from, like, the kid that you were to the adult that you're going to be. And I thought this movie did that really well. Like, one of the most interesting parts of it for me was the way the parents interact with Riley, like, outside of her head, and the way that they expect certain things of her. Like, among other things, her parents keep saying, like, oh, where's our happy girl? And it's one of those things where you know what they mean is that they want her to be happy, but to Riley, it kind of reads as, like, they want her to pretend to be happy and they don't actually care about her. And this all kind of comes full circle with, like, how sadness ends up, I don't want to spoil it, so actually
sure. Well, I also think that the way her parents talk to her, I think it is something that kids deal with, especially where people kind of ask you to shine it on. But I also feel like, moreover, it's important that Disney and Pixar made Riley a girl character, because I think that specifically females get the pressure to shine it on and smile a lot more than males do. Like, a boy, I think, is allowed to be angry, but a girl, people tell her like to calm down and, like, you know. And I mean, even to the point of, like, even as grown women, how often are you walking down the street and someone tells you to smile as if that's part of your fucking job? So, like, I thought that was a really socially keen thing, like, socially conscious thing for them to do in a very simple way. And the movie's not, you know, the movie doesn't get too into that, but I thought that gender choice makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's one of those things where the fact that it's a woman, it's not the point of the movie. Inside Out, I think, would work just as well if most of the characters were male, but it does add, like, a little layer of something extra and a little tiny bit more depth to what we're seeing.
I just really connected to her, too, because, like, I was a little girl, and at that age, I loved playing sports. So when I saw that hockey island thing, and also what she experiences with the hockey, I totally got that. And so when you see, again, no spoilers, when you see what happens to that personality island, it's like I could actually really relate to that point in my life when that island might have had that happen to it.
Well, do you know what I'm saying?
And that's pretty much...
I feel like it's tricky to keep... I feel like we all like this movie, but I feel like to get deeper, we're going to need to go into spoilers a little earlier. Is everybody cool with that?
I want to talk about something that's not spoiler really quick. I just want to say really quick how much I love this movie. So this movie, you know, it represents all the emotions, you know, that you've seen that in trailers, but it goes into so many other things about how the mind works and represents it visually in a way that you're just like, of course, but also, oh my god, how did you ever think of that?
There really are. There's so many clever areas of Riley's mind. It's not just about the emotions in headquarters. Like, obviously, you know from the trailers, Joy and Sadness get sucked out that tube, and they have to navigate and find their way back. And the places that they go, and the people, things, I don't know what to call them, that they meet, it's like, I mean, it's kind of like what I just said with Hockey Island. It's like, even if you're not a big hockey player as a kid, it's like anybody could relate to almost every single part of this movie in some respect.
And also the fact that there's jokes in there for kids and adults. Like, there's a lot of just silly stuff that kids will be interested in. But, like, one of my favorite jokes for adults in there, which is not giving away anything, is that there's a point where Joy knocks over 2 boxes and they're facts and opinions.
I was going to point out the same thing.
And she can't, they're like these weird cards that have symbols and she doesn't understand what they are. And she's like, oh God. And she's trying to sort them. And she goes, I think I mixed up the facts and opinions. And, like, someone's like, oh, don't worry. That happens with everybody. And, like, I think that might have got one of the biggest laughs out of the screening I saw, where a bunch of adults were just like, oh, yep.
I know what my favorite joke was, but it is a spoiler. So maybe we should go into that area right about now. Okay, spoilers for Inside Out. If you have not seen the movie, leave now, come back later, or if you want to just spoil the movie for yourself, just stay. I don't care, whatever. Spoilers. Okay, so my favorite part of the movie was the very end of the movie. I bet Angie could guess what it was, too. I bet you both could guess what it was, too.
Obviously. Okay, so the movie... So
why,
the
Kristy, why do you look so confused?
I'm trying to remember. To be fair, I saw the movie more than a week ago.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, right, right. No, you know what? I actually wrote in my notes when I saw this movie, like, Perri freaks out. Like,
oh my god, did I freak out, though.
So, yeah, in the after
end
credits,
of the movie, I mean, if you're at this point in the show, you've probably seen it, but the end credits, they show what the emotions look like in a lot of different people's minds, and then they also show a dog and a cat mind, and like, holy shit, that cat one is like spot on. It's like all I think about now are emotions going in Dewey's head as he's pushing shit off my countertop. It's amazing.
Yeah, so what I like so much as we're going into spoilers is that, Bing Bong is a character we didn't see in much of the advertising. I think maybe I saw him in one thing, but, like, Bing Bong really got to me. Bing Bong is her imaginary friend, and he wants the best for Riley, and he has this really beautiful arc, and there's one point where he's afraid he'll never be important to Riley again, and Sadness and him have this moment where Sadness just sits and empathizes with him, and, like, I remember that point in my childhood where you all of a sudden start realizing other people have feelings, which I know sounds horrible, but like really, that's why so many horror movies are about kids, because kids don't understand that other people have feelings, so they're terrifying. So, deal with it. But like, that point where you start going like, oh, that hurt their feelings, and like to see like Sadness have this turn and thereby Joy have this turn was just really affecting to me. I have to say,
it's also another idea that anybody can connect to, because like, there's so many situations where so-and-so is sad and there's nothing anybody can do to fix it, but just having someone say, I understand. Like,
or just listen.
In the movie, that turns out to be the purpose of Sadness, is that Sadness is a tool for empathy. Like, it's...
And to let someone else you know linked. You need help. Because that's how it ends up affecting Riley.
It's a way to get other people to empathize with you, and also to be able to empathize with other people, and it's so central to like who Riley is and like what's important to her, like her family, her friends, that I think it makes a really, really strong argument for the purpose that Sadness actually does serve in our lives.
Yeah, and it's like, I heard a lot of people saying that they cried throughout this movie, which, weirdly, I was telling Angie yesterday, I've heard guys say that they've cried, it's like a weirdly dude thing to do, to be like, oh, I cried like 7 times, like
you know
whatever
what I
times.
think it is? I think Pixar movies are one of the few things that a guy can admit to having cried through. Like, a guy's not going to admit even if he cried through like The Fault in Our Stars, but a Pixar movie,
I think
because like
I also feel like
Toy
Story 3 in particular, I feel like that made it a thing. It's like if you didn't cry during that incinerator scene, you just have no heart. So like no, it's like the opposite. Nobody would admit to not crying during that scene.
If not, you're a monster.
But actually,
but like I've heard so many guys bragging and being like, "Yeah, man, like I cried like 5 times." Like, oh, I cried 7 times. I'm like,
didn't cry that much with this, and I was surprised because I was ready for it, and also because having seen 60 minutes of it and seeing where it was going, it's like for 2 months now I've kind of been bracing myself to, not necessarily walk out depressed, but having it hit home too hard. And I think I actually had the opposite reaction where like, there was a scene or two where I definitely, felt tears coming, but I most certainly was not crying throughout the entire movie. And I left it, feeling pretty good. And it's just a cartoon, but almost with like a clearer perspective of, how certain feelings make me feel as a whole, I think even though it's just a cartoon and it's a big story. But
why for me it ultimately felt uplifting is not just because it has a happy ending, but because by validating the existence of sadness, you destigmatize it for your audience. And like, I never feel bad when I cry. Like I feel it's cathartic. I don't necessarily enjoy it, but like I connected to that in the movie. So like that didn't make me feel uncomfortable. And I'm wondering if for some people maybe wallowing in sadness in the film does.
It's funny. I was just reading the press notes because we have the end of the tour press day tomorrow, and I was reading the notes from the writer who, he was talking about Infinite Jest, and he was talking about how his writing in that book hit home for so many people because he was one of the first people to like actually put into words what certain feelings feel like. I mean, I've never read the book. I'm just reiterating what's in the notes, but like that's almost kind of what they do here, but through animation.
Yeah. And I like that a lot about it. I actually, and especially when I tried to write the review, I was all the more impressed with what they did because I had a really hard time putting into words what I thought about a movie that is about feelings as people.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that really only works as a movie, and I'm a big fan of that. Like, I love a talking movie that like works as a book as much as the next person. Some of my favorite movies are that type, but there's something really special about a movie like Mad Max Fury Road or like Inside Out that like you really like. This is really just a cinematic experience. You could not do the same thing in any other medium.
True.
Yeah. So I think we all liked it.
On Inside Out.
I think
the dream sequence. The dream sequence was amazing.
The dream sequences.
That's like
that's
like the only time that there would be some sort of like issue with a dog that I could handle it because it was like just so freaking funny.
But yeah, I think it's really smart. I think it's funny. I think it's very well cast. Yeah, it's solid Pixar.
I'd say, well, I'm not going to get into this now, but I'd highly recommend seeing it. It is incredible. It exceeded my expectations, and you must go see this movie.
I love it. I think it's one of the most original things that they've done in a long time. And if you're a dude, bring tissues. Also, if you're a girl, but especially if you're a dude. Apparently.
Especially if you're a dude. That should be our
That's
pull
a great.
quote.
I was just going to say
if you're a dude.
That's the perfect pull quote there. All right,
oh
now.
God, I just realized how that could sound really dirty.
Aw, no.
Angie, you're ruining this.
We didn't even need to go there.
I activated your little, like, disgust in your head, didn't I?
I'm like so tempted to just be like, I'm going back on vacation. Nerds to you guys.
All right, so now we're going to wrap up with our hot topic, which is ranking the Pixar movies. Ranking in a way. We're just going to each talk about our favorite.
Favorites.
Yeah,
there's too many now to do that in 5.
I mean, it's hard. So I'm going to start with WALL-E, and I'm obsessed with WALL-E because WALL-E is basically a puppy, but in robot form. So it should make sense that WALL-E is my favorite movie. And I mean, we were talking about this before we started recording, but like the first half of WALL-E in particular, like when he's interacting with his cockroach, that stuff absolutely just kills me. And the design of that world he lives in and the detail of his home, I can just watch that movie over and over and find little things in the background that excite me. Actually, one of my parents' dogs is named WALL-E. But we didn't want to be too on the nose about it, so it's spelled W-A-L-L-Y instead of E. But, like, even the second half of the movie, like, I'm just thinking right now about some of the other characters that they introduced. I have, it's, like, sitting on my shelf over there, but, like, a little baby Mo.
Oh,
you know, the cleaning guy?
Mo.
Yeah, Mo.
Yeah.
And he just says Mo all the time. But, yeah, we make fun of my mom that she's the Mo of the family because, like, you guys know my mom. She runs around with Windex and paper towels and cleans everything. So there you go. That is mine, WALL-E. I'm obsessed with it and can watch it over and over and over. Actually, funny story, when I first saw WALL-E in the theater, it's like, you know how, like, irritable I can get when, like, people are, like, chewing loud or there's something uncomfortable going on around us. So I went with my parents and Lonnie, and we noticed, like, something just, like, fucking smelled funny. Like, it just smelled funny. And then I sat through the whole movie, like, uncomfortable because, like, the smell. But I still loved the movie. It was still one of my favorite movies. But after we got up, we realized someone had puked right in front of us. We were wondering why the two people had gotten up and left. So if I still love this movie while sitting behind puke, like, that is just gold.
There's a lot of bodily fluids going on this episode of Popcorn Per Second.
Seriously.
Happening right now.
That's like the first thing that popped in my head when I talk about WALL-E, though.
You're not gonna get invited back to Pixar ever again.
Well, now I don't want to talk about which one my favorite is, because we just talked about vomit, and my favorite is Ratatouille, which is about eating. So great. Thank you very much for ruining that, Perri.
My pleasure.
So Ratatouille is my favorite Pixar movie, and the thing that I love about it is that, like, so there's this one scene in particular that, like, that moment, it kind of just became my favorite, and it's the one where Remy, the main character, the rat that wants to be a chef, is, like, just, like, he has this, like, long monologue where he's just geeking out to one of his other rat friends about just, like, what he loves about food and what he loves about cooking and how exciting it is, and, like, it's the scene where that I just was just like, yes, because it's something that I feel like if you consider yourself even a little bit of a geek about anything at all, it's a scene that you completely relate to. Like, I was like, oh, like, Ratatouille is a movie that just is about being incredibly passionate about something and just, you know, like, kind of beyond all reason, and I think everyone has a little something like that in their life, so I really connected to that. Also, I like the dish Ratatouille as well, but that's not why it's my favorite. And Patton Oswalt plays the rat, and he's just the perfect choice for that because, you know, we're just talking about how Remy is basically a geek, and it works perfectly for that. Plus, there's the message of, you know, like the message that they keep saying throughout the movie is like anyone can cook, you know. Not, and they don't just mean cook, but like that you can just kind of do anything, and that if you put enough of yourself into it, you can make something that's worthwhile. And I think it's a lovely message.
But I can't cook.
Well, it's actually more the idea that like
tried.
Like a great cook can come from anywhere. It's not necessarily that your background defines who you will be. I like that. I like that idea. Kind of similar, I guess, I don't know. Also a Brad Bird movie. Mine's The Incredibles. Because, you know, we've seen a lot of superhero movies, but The Incredibles still feels so original and so smart and not snarky. And I just, you know, you have the story about this family, and like, I feel like there's a lot to relate to, even though they are super, where it's like, you know, and that the powers in the family make so much sense for the members of the family, where like, as the dad, it makes sense that Mr. Incredible is this, like, strong thing that has to hold so many things on his shoulders, his responsibilities, and then his wife has to be incredibly flexible, and she's always, like, zipping around with her limbs, and then his daughter just wants to be invisible, because being a teenager is the absolute fucking worst, and then their young son is, like, Dash, and he just zips all around, because kids just, I hung out with a child today, and she is just the energy, good God. And then, like, they have a baby, oh, shit show, So, but what I like about The Incredibles, it takes this family dynamic that we know, and it takes like the sort of road trip dynamic that we know, and then throws them together in this really kind of smart and silly way that is just fun every time I watch it. And I feel like every time I watch it, I find a new gag, or I find a new joke, or I just find a new moment of tenderness that, like, it's such a good movie at capturing emotion. Like, there's a scene where his wife strokes his face from across a room, and it just, you get those emotions. And I think that's what, for me, Pixar at their best gets those tiny moments along with those big spectacular ones. Like, we can all think of a million iconic Pixar moments at this point, but like, I like that the emotional intelligence of in The Incredibles is really strong.
Big question now, where does Inside Out fall in your top whatever of Pixar movies?
See, for me, it wouldn't be in the top 5. I like it a lot, but I feel like I really love the Toy Stories, I really love Ratatouille, I really love Up, and I like Inside Out a lot. But I didn't have the feeling I had with all those movies where I wanted to see it again immediately.
I will disagree with that, and I will definitely put it in my top 5, if not in my top 3, but I'd actually have to sit down and make like a proper list and really think it out long and hard. But Inside Out's the first movie in a while that kind of really hit home in ways that the large majority of movies out there just can't do, and I think it's incredible.
That's fair.
Incredible.
It's definitely my top 5. It's probably, so I was thinking about this before the show, and like right now I'd rank it at number 2, but I feel like a large part of it is because it's the most recent one I saw. And I have the attention span of a dog, apparently. But I think even after time goes on, it'll probably stay in my top 5. I mean, it's just, Pixar has shown us a lot of things and taken us to a lot of weird worlds, but this one was one where I was just like, I could not even have imagined this. Like, I don't know where we are, and I love that.
And actually, I'm going to do a shameless plug right now, but if you want to know what it takes to make one of these Pixar movies, go look up this piece that I wrote for Collider. It's called 39 Things to Know About Making a Movie at Pixar, and like, if you don't appreciate how good some of their movies are at this point, just like look at how many people and how much work goes into making just like a couple frames of a sequence. It's absolutely mind-blowing, so go check that out.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes, so check down below for links.
Cool. That is a wrap on episode 71 of Popcorn and Prosecco. You know where to find us, but just in case, we have our YouTube channel. We are also on Facebook, where we would love for you to like us. We are on Twitter at Popcorn Prosecco. You can also go on iTunes, where it would be super helpful if you could rate and comment, and then all 3 of us are all over the internet as well. Kristy, go first.
You can find me in Maine!
I knew you were going to
You
say
were waiting to do that the entire episode.
I know. I was very excited about it. Whatever. You can also find me online. I write for all over the internet, so you can find career highlights at decadentcriminals.com, and you can talk to me directly on Twitter at Kristy Puchko.
Angie?
I am not in Maine. You can find me in Brooklyn. And online, you can find me on Twitter at AJHAN. Stop it, Kristy. I see what you're doing. Sorry. Anyway, you can find me on Twitter at AJHAN, and I write for slashfilm.com.
And I don't know how to follow any of that up, so I'll just say you can find me, my writing on Collider.com, and my Twitter handle is @PNemroff. Oh, and if you see the movie, you'll know who this is. Go see the movie. All right, that's a wrap on episode 71. Thank you for watching. We will see you next time.
What the heck is that?
Who puts broccoli on pizza? That's it. I'm done.